Welcome back to the tavern. We're glad you're with us and appreciate you listening. Jack, back in the 90s, the Senate Republicans, under the leadership of Newt Gingrich, had a contract with America that was followed by all Republicans. Every talking point was about this contract. And it worked, because at the end of it, we had zero debt. We had a balanced budget. It was thanks to Republicans. So you thought it'd be a great idea to have another contract with America. Five top areas that the Republicans should focus on to the American people to help them win the 2022 midterm elections. Now, we're just two average guys. These are just our thoughts, what the Republicans should do to reclaim the House and the Senate in midterm elections. So, you have any opening statements?
My opening statement is this. I have my drink.
I have mine. And Mike has his.
Hold on, let me take a swig because...
It's going to be long, folks.
Yes, these are I picked 5 things and Dennis picked 5 things. I don't know what he picked. He don't know what I picked. I'm going to take a swig of this. Oh, that's a little strong. So it should do the job. And I think this is the platform that, my personal opinion, the top 5 things in the 2022, starting now, because it's coming quick. It is literally a year and 3 months away.
Yeah, but already I've heard like 3 names running against Tom Rice.
Good.
There's a female and 2 males.
Yeah, he deserves to be unemployed.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, Republicans out there have to
pay attention to the voters.
Yeah. They have to get back to basics of governing. That being said, they do have to take a page from the people they call Democrats. They got to take a page from their book, and that's my number 4. But if you want, I'll get right into my number 1.
All right, what's your number 1? I'll tell you my number 1.
My number 1 is, and I'll go into it after you tell me your number 1. I figured you want to go back and forth that way?
Sure.
My number 1 is, these people should know the Constitution and the voting and do their voting according to the Constitution.
I agree with that 100%. Number 1 for me is securing our borders. Because immigration, illegal immigration drives me nuts. It just drives me nuts.
Yeah, well, for my number 1, it's covered. They wrote that in the Constitution on how to become a United States citizen.
They did.
So everything that you need to know to do your job as a leader of this country is written in a book that's 25 pages long. That's all you need to know.
Right.
Somebody comes up to you, you look in your book, and you say yay or nay. Can't do it that way. But here's the problem. If they're going to vote according to the Constitution, that means bureaucrats cannot make laws anymore.
That'll never happen.
The Department of Environmental Control, they can't write laws. It's not their job.
Yeah, you're right, it's not.
It's not their job, and unfortunately they're writing laws, and our representatives don't even know those laws. And why don't they know those laws, Dennis?
They're not reading them.
I'll tell you why.
They're not reading them.
Because they don't have to live by them.
Oh yeah, rule for thee, not for me.
Right. So, we got bureaucracies that are writing laws, and the only ones that are allowed to write laws is Congress.
Mm-hmm.
Senate and representatives. Those are the only ones that are allowed to write laws. But they don't. They don't write laws. And they don't write bills. Special interests should not be allowed to write bills. Mark Levin's, the Levin amendments.
Liberty amendments.
Yeah, the Liberty amendments. I'm sorry. He puts in that, the way you get rid of the bureaucracies writing laws is you squeeze them out of their budgets. You get rid of their budgets. You can say it's never going to happen, but if their budgets go back to where they're supposed to be, I mean, we went through the Department of Justice. I mean, it's a monstrosity that the Department of Justice, nobody even knows how many branches are in the Department of Justice. That's the Department of Justice, folks. Guess what they're doing? They're enforcing laws. They're bringing you to court on laws that are being passed by bureaucracies that are not elected into office. So as a Republican, if you want to stay by the Constitution, you need to start squeezing their budget and get rid of them. That's number one. Number two, you have to start writing your own bills. There should be no more 3,000-page bills. That's ridiculous. How can a bill be 3,000 pages long? You can't pick that book up. It's too heavy to pick up. Again, like I said, if you want to think how big 3 pages of a bill is, read Gone with the Wind. You ain't going to do it. And that's not, I don't even think that's 1,000 pages, that book.
Well, I'm not sure how long.
I don't know how long. It's too long, whatever it is, because I watched the movie. It was horrible.
Just look at the constitutional book we're reading right now. It's Origins and Development. It's 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
And I'm up to like page 700. I've been reading it for a month.
Right. Yeah. So you're gonna tell me what my life is like on a bill that's 3,000 pages long. That somebody, like I said, they wanted to make a railway from Silicon Valley to San Francisco or someplace like that. I don't think representatives in Oklahoma care about how people in Silicon Valley get to work.
Yeah, why should they care? It don't affect them.
Well, because you know what? Special interest wrote that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Republicans, get out of the jellyfish mode, get a backbone, do your job. As soon as you are elected, you should know the Constitution and its amendments verbatim, forwards and backwards, to do your job the right way.
You know, I like your number one. I mean, besides Cruz and Rubio, they know the Constitution. These Democrats don't. They don't even want to mention the Constitution.
They don't even know how to spell America.
Right? So, the reason I feel securing our borders should be number one for Republicans is, well, let's get to this. For every midterm election, the majority has lost on an average, 27 seats in the House. I think most people are fed up with the Biden administration regarding our southern border crisis.
Let's not call it Biden. Let's just call it the administration.
Okay.
We don't know who's running it.
Right. For June alone, the Border Patrol apprehended 188,000 migrants crossing the border. And each migrant takes an officer out of the field for hours. So what and who is getting into our country when they're busy doing their paperwork? Because of this administration turning a blind eye on the border, criminal elements are getting into the United States. MS-13 gang members, 18th Street gang members that are now in our communities to prey on people. These cartels that are based in Mexico, they're not stupid people. And they have a lot of influence. A lot of influence in the Mexican government. They're corrupt too. Powerful people, they've corrupted them in Mexico. They have spotters that watch the American side and know when it's safe for these drug mules to get their drugs into this country. Any drug you can imagine is crossing our border. And I feel Republicans should focus on border security.
It worked for Trump. It worked for Trump, and everybody was like, oh my God, I can't believe he touched that third rail. And for you that don't know what the third rail is, in New York City, the subway third rail is what makes the trains go by, and it's electricity, and you touch it, you die. But you're right, Dennis. It's true. And, you know, with the criminal element that's coming in, with law enforcement being defunded and incarceration and bail being thrown out the window, I don't think that these cartels in Mexico are really worrying about if their drug mules get caught anymore, because they'll be back the next day.
Yep.
they're going to be out of jail. They want to legalize everything. Are we up to number 2?
No, I still got a little bit more about the,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
about the why I feel they should secure our borders. I mean, and it comes down to, when it comes down to illegal drugs coming into our country, we need to talk about the number of deaths we have. And in 2020, 93,000 people died from opioid overdose. Plus, probably another 200,000 died of, heroin and stuff like that. But these people have to be given Narcan, all right, to come back to life. If you don't know what Narcan is, do some research on it because it's like a miracle drug. I mean,
It's taking more and more Narcan to bring these people back, though. Some of these people are taking 6 doses of Narcan, and then they don't learn their lesson. They go back to it because there's no, hey, I'm good, and I'm pissed off at you because you just killed my high.
Yep. So I just I did a little bit of research, and just Myrtle Beach in 2019, they used 220 times they used Narcan. I'm sure here in 2021, especially with COVID this past year, with people being stressed out, I mean, I'm sure it's a lot higher. They're probably using it daily. And the cost of Narcan is between $22 and $60 for intranasal kits. So that's $60 per each person that we have to use it on 3 or 4 times. It's costing taxpayers of every community their hard-earned money to save someone addicted to opioids. Recently I did an experiment with your sister Margaret, and we asked a question about how many times Narcan should be used on the same person, and we got some good feedback. I mean, one person believes the drug pandemic is fueled by big pharma. How someone who barely has anything contributing, like only the drug lords contribute. These migrants, they don't contribute anything. I think they're totally different things. Because people will come to this country and they'll do whatever they have to do. So if they have to bring drugs here, they're going to bring it here. Some of these people are willing participants. Listen, I know a wall won't stop all the drug problems. But you know what it will do? It'll slow it down. So law enforcement can focus on other hot spots. So that's what I feel number 1 should be for the Republicans.
And don't forget, we have a drug problem in this country because the government makes money off of it.
They sure do.
You can't find a Cuban cigar out on the streets if your life depended on it. But you can find these drugs that require Narcan to bring you back to life on every corner in America.
And also, doesn't a country need borders? I mean, you're not a country without borders.
Is that Trump? Did we have Trump in the room?
So my number 2 priority is energy dependence. Republicans should make a contract with America that we're going to be energy independent. I mean,
That's a good one. That's a real good one. My number 2 is, if you're a representative, you have to vote what your constituents want. You have to explain how. You report back to the politicians, local politicians, on what it looks like the party's going to be voting on these new bills and these new laws that our Congress and statesmen wrote themselves. And the big part of doing that is getting rid of the 17th Amendment. Get rid of the 17th Amendment and make these senators go into office because the representatives of the state and the local people picked them. There is your direct line to Washington, D.C. again. It takes the senators out of Washington, D.C. It takes them out of the pockets of special interest. They don't care what the special interests are writing in the bills because they don't depend on special interests to get elected.
wouldn't that be great? They relied on the constituents to help them get elected.
Yeah, that's my number 2. My number 2 basically is telling you, get the power of government back to the people.
So I like that number 2. So for mine, it was, like I said, energy independence. We have all the resources we need right here in America. There is no need to buy oil or anything from any other country. Just a short 6 months ago, We had the lowest gas prices since the early 90s. I think we were paying about $1.70 a gallon up down here in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Fantastic, folks. Within 6 months, we're paying more at $1 more, over $1 more.
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
Over $1 more.
It's outrageous.
I think California's up to $5.
You get what you vote for. You know, if people aren't annoyed at that, they need to get their head out of their asses, Jack. They need to wake up. You know, I get it.
Don't make me choke on my drink, will you?
You know, I get it. Democrats are in control right now, and they want to get their social programs and green energy in while they can, while they're in the majority. You know, they want more and more people to start relying on the government for their income. I mean, I think that's a bad idea. I mean, I don't think when they voted for this administration, they really, really knew that they were what they were getting themselves into. I think they thought he would be a moderate Democrat, but he told them he was going to be progressive. So I guess he fooled a lot of people. I mean, some of them should have opened their eyes by now, because what we see is high gas prices, higher inflation, which is going to be here for a while, and higher everything. You know, we've talked about the rise in prices in previous podcasts, and we broke it down for people. You know, the experts are saying inflation will most likely be here for a long time. So even though these Democrats in this administration have promised not to raise your taxes, you're still going to be paying higher fees for everything. I mean, I hope Democrats are happy about that. I can't wait for one of them to start complaining about gas prices, because it'd be fun telling them, hey, you voted for this and you get what you vote for.
Well, it would be, we were energy independent, and again, we should be. We can be. I bought the new book from Mark Levin called American Marxism, and what made me buy the book was him promoting the book, and he had said a statement of this: how arrogant are the human beings of this country to think that they can have an effect on the earth? We are not affecting the earth. We haven't scratched the surface of what this world has to offer. We're in the first layer of the earth, fossil fuels. We haven't gone past that. We don't even know what other liabilities are under that. What other industries lie below the first layer of the earth. We haven't gone that far. We don't know. And when he said that, I said I have to buy his book. So exactly so, Dennis. We should be in energy independent. And as far as what you say, the Democrats saying they're not going to raise taxes, their monetary theory tells you, if you just look at the monetary theory, why they're saying these things, they are going to raise your taxes because they want to make money a commodity. It's a fiat, and they're going to make it a commodity, and they're going to tax you to make that commodity harder to get.
You know, listen, folks, I get it. Trump wasn't very presidential, and that's why most people wanted him out of office. I mean, it just wasn't the Democrats. I mean, a lot of elected representatives on the Republican side wanted him out because they feared he would let us know about how corrupt they really are. You know, the only problem is he didn't do it quick enough, and he let them get away with just about everything.
Because of people like Paul Ryan.
Yep, well, I didn't like him. He should have went in there right away and cleaned house, like he said he was going to do. You know, he was right, saying America should be first and be the leaders of the free world. If you don't think these politicians are corrupt on both sides, you're very naive. There is no way to become a multimillionaire on a government salary. There's no way. Trump believed we should be energy independent, and he was steering us in that direction. The Keystone Pipeline, permits for companies to drill for oil. We had everything going in the right direction. Other countries should be buying resources from us, not we buying from them. Let's focus on that, you know, and if you want green energy, fine. Let's work toward that. I mean, Jack, half this nation is split between Democrats and Republicans.
I don't know how.
And Texas, in 2022, they're going to try and get out of the union. I mean, if they are successful, other states will follow. I mean, I think it'll be bad for every one of us. But there's a lot of talk in Texas right now that they're going to succeed from the union.
The house stand divided is destined to fail.
Yep, you got that right.
You know who said that, right?
I don't remember.
Abraham Lincoln.
Smart man.
Yeah, he was. I'm going to get into a rabbit hole later on what you just said there.
Okay.
But right now, my number 3 is run on term limits.
I was going to put that number 3, but I put they should focus on voting laws because of this federal government and Democrats want to federalize all our voting rights. So I picked voting rights, secure voting laws.
Well, I feel that kind of runs on my number 1. Run on the Constitution. The Constitution tells you how it's supposed. You know, the Constitution has all these problems already solved that we're writing about right now.
They sure do.
They have immigration, how to become a U.S. citizen. I mean, these people thought of this back in the 1780s, 1790. They had this covered. They knew what the problems were. They studied government the whole time the Revolutionary War was going on.
They studied every single government that was out there at the time.
Yeah. I mean, they did not put in term limits because they thought it was an embarrassment to get that low of a job to represent the people. In other words, you were a servant to everybody in the United States. You don't get any lower than that. You wanted to do your job, do it the right way, and then go back to your private life. So they didn't put it in there. But these guys have made it so corrupt, and so they're the only ones that can become millionaires on a government paycheck, are the leaders of this country now. And they don't want to lose that. I mean, look at what Hunter Biden's doing. Selling art for $500,000?
I want to know who's buying it.
There was a guy there, well, everybody does. There was a guy on the news this morning who said that's genius. Because now, you know, we could say you had no experience in energy. What are you doing on that gas board? You had no experience in investments. How did you get $1.5 billion from China to run a hedge fund company? Now he's an artist. He's an artist, folks. He was never an artist before, but now he is. You know why? Because nobody could say in somebody else's mind, how can you afford $500,000 for that piece of junk? Well, I think it's beautiful. And who's doing this? I mean, if China's buying it, you know, as soon as they get that piece of artwork, they're throwing it in the garbage.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we talked about voting laws. We talked about HR 1 in the House and SR 1 in the Senate, which is the Voting Rights Act.
Same thing, yeah.
Of 2021. They're the same thing. They want to federalize elections and make elections publicly funded. For every dollar
God.
they want to put, the incumbent gets government money to fund their elections.
6 times.
I thought it was 6. Oh, it was 6 or 12, but
no,
it was 6.
6 times.
You know, they would never lose an election because the amount they would receive would be crazy. So that's why I feel Republicans should focus on voting rights and keep it in the state's hands. You can't let voting be federalized. The feds screw up everything else, and when reading those bills, they would screw this up too. I mean, I think we can agree that voting rights should be fair and accessible to everyone that is registered voters. In 2020, they said there was 168 million registered voters. I think it's more like 155 million, but whatever. I'm not going to cry over 13
You know
million.
what state has the strictest voting laws in the country?
I think it's Delaware.
Delaware. Biden's home state.
Yep. I know. You know, employers, they have to give you time off to vote, but most people don't use that time because they feel they owe their employer a solid 8 hours, 12 hours, whatever. I mean, so I feel they need to move election day to a Saturday when most of the country is off. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Saturdays is good. I think it should be Saturday and Sunday because I think church should be brought back to the American people, and I think that would be a good church outing. We're going to meet at the polls,
That's a good idea.
say a little prayer, go vote. Go vote your conscience. I like running on term limits because if this piece of garbage is a tyrant, they don't have enough time to ruin your life.
How many years do you think they should do?
It's hard because the founders made representatives do 2 years and Senate does 6. So if you're a representative, that would be 3 terms. and Senate 1. If you did 12, that would give your representatives 6 terms and senators 2. So I would think it would be between that. Between 6 and 12, greater minds would have to figure it out, I think.
I'm in line with Mark Levin when I read his Liberty Amendments. Between both, you can do 12 years total.
You know what? I think that's a fair assessment, because if you want to get back to the people and become a senator, well, you know what? Maybe 6 years. That's 3 terms as a representative. You can only do 3 terms as a representative, but if you run out of time and you're a good representative, there's no reason why you can't do another 6 years as a senator. And if the people in your state enjoyed your work and could tell the next representative to appoint you as a senator for 1 term, I think that's the way I like it.
You think there should be term limits for our judicial federal Supreme Court?
Absolutely, I do. I believe in that, because if you look in the Constitution, the smallest writings are on the judicial, because they thought that was going to be the branch of government to interfere with your life the least, and it's the biggest. Mm-hmm. It's the biggest pension holder, biggest employer, and they're legislating from the bench. And yeah, I think there should definitely be term limits on that, and I don't think it should be more than 10 years. 10 years is enough. And you have to be some sort of a lawyer, practiced law. You have to have court hours, documented court hours. You have to understand the debates of court, because that's what court is. You're arguing, you are arguing cases. In other words, you're going back and forth in front of the juries on your point, and that should be it.
So I figure 18 years for a Supreme Court for me. But I think the Republicans need to focus on voter ID. I mean, this is a must. I mean, you need an ID for everything we do here in America. So when the Democrats say it isn't fair to show an ID, I'd like to ask them, why isn't it fair? And what do you suggest? Because I've only seen complaining and not one solution made. They talk about, this Georgia law goes back to Jim Crow. Well, all right. You tell us how you can make it better. But no, they just complain about it and all talk.
Everybody complains.
You need an ID to buy cigarettes, beer. And the most important thing we do as an American is vote. So why they don't want people to show an ID is pretty strange to me. It's actually asinine. It's pretty stupid, actually, Jack.
Yeah, it is.
The bad part is people actually believe what they tell them, that is racist to show an ID. I don't see how it's racist.
Well, it's not racist to me. It's insulting. And we've been watching a lot of reports on that on the other side. I happen to watch some conservative news, and I happen to watch some mainstream. I won't call it Democrat anymore, but I watch mainstream. And what they're saying is insulting. Basically, they're saying there's a portion of this country that is so illiterate that they cannot get an ID or know their social security number in order to vote. So my statement to these people that is saying that that's a racist proposal is, if you have a portion of this country that is that illiterate, that can't do this, we're doing something wrong in our education system.
Yeah.
They should be taught how to do this.
Don't be a follower, people. Don't be the sheep being led out to wherever you're going. Be the leader and think for yourself. We can talk about early voting. It happens in just about every state. But these Democrats create a false narrative when they say we're restricting people from voting, especially in minority communities. We need to get rid of the term minority, because I hate that term. We're all equal. All right? In God's eyes, we're all equal. I mean, what they're telling us is nothing new. They've always said Democrats will take care of the people. But what they are proposing is massive government spending, money we don't have, and the $3.5 trillion budget they have proposed. It will allow them to pass SR1. We're going to be in a long fight because they want to make D.C., they want to make that a state.
Puerto Rico, too.
And that means more Democrats in power. And that'll be for a long time, folks. That means socialism. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, that's, let me ask you this question. I'm going to answer a question with a question. This other party, the alleged Democratic Party, do you think they're, we always say that these politicians come up with slogans, and
I don't think they come up with them.
Well, you think their slogan for minority means dumb?
I wouldn't say dumb. I would say lower income, lower poverty. So we're gonna get them to trust us more. So lack of education. Because if some people don't have education, they're very smart.
I don't know about the education being smart anymore. I don't know if I equate that.
Well, back in our day, I know a lot of people that had a sixth grade education that went on to do great things.
Right. I mean, I don't know if I can equate education anymore with smarts. And if you were educated earlier in your life and let's say you went through college and got through college in the 80s. The 70s was starting this socialist agenda in colleges. This progressive thought process was starting to go in colleges. So you graduated. Obviously, it wasn't that bad. But okay, let's say you finished college in 82. So 1982, you were a Democrat. It was a different party. And you were educated. There was a small indoctrination, not much. You could forget about it. But you were a Democrat. And you never reviewed what's going on. You just keep on going. I don't think you're educated anymore.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a real good point. You're relying on other people to tell you about what these people are doing.
Yeah,
and they're only going to tell you the good things. They're not going to tell you the bad things.
Right.
So you're going to say, I'll vote for him because of what you just said.
Yeah, and they believe the lies. And if you are educated, you continue to educate yourself. And I don't think a lot of people do. Life gets in the way.
You're right.
And I don't equate it with it no more.
Good point.
Can I say something about the IDs?
Sure.
It's funny that this Democratic Party doesn't want people to be ID'd for voting, and yet when the socialists get into power or communists get into power, they're going to want everyone ID'd because they're going to want to know where you are.
They already want you ID'd, Mike, because if you got the vaccination, you better show that card.
I was just going to say
There
that.
you go, knocking on the doors.
Yep, I was just going to say
They
that.
want to know where you are.
I have to go back
That's
up.
what I think this is why this vaccination is so important.
I got to go back to the communist state of New York next week for to see a doctor for endoscope. And that doctor's office told me, did you have your vaccination? I said, yes. They said, well, bring that with you.
That's crazy.
So there's your ID, folks.
Yep. That's crazy. But I see Cuomo's getting he's finally getting investigated he's going to have his
Yeah,
interview.
by a Democrat.
Yeah.
By a Democrat that has to run for election next year.
Yep.
Which, since you went down that way, Lee Zeldin's running for governor of New York.
Right.
Good man. Look into him. Look at his record as a representative in D.C.
Now, as the time gets closer, we'll look into him too.
He's on the face of it.
He seems like good.
Yeah.
But we'll dig into it more. Let you know. So we're up to number 4, Jack.
All right. I'm going to change my number 4 to number 5.
Okay.
So my new number 4, which used to be number 5, is pass the education bill that Trump wanted to, 1776, get rid of 1619, because, like I said in the last podcast, that 1619 was lied about by Batiste. You haven't heard half of it on his book, how they took everything out of context, and 1619 is built upon 1854 Democrat Party King Cotton.
So my fourth is reeling in big tech and their First Amendment censorship.
You know what I think we should do with big tech?
Get rid of them.
I think, personally, this is what I think. I think that, I forget the name of the bill, Grant bill? It was in that book, chapter 22. It was about monopolies. I think that these big techs, now, if we do my plan, the owners of these big techs are going to get richer tenfold, but they're going to lose their power by tenfold. And that is to bring these big tech companies to court, which Donald Trump is doing, and break them up into 10 different companies. This way, new people can get involved in it, and these guys that own it now will only own 10%. And it'll be broken down into so many different parts that our representatives in D.C. and the White House now can't take them and cause them to do the government's work, which is fascism, which is what the White House is doing now, making Facebook do the work that they can't do, hand in hand, hand in glove. It's against the law to make a private company do something that the government can't do legally. But if they break these monopolies up, these people will make a lot of money out of it at first, but they're already billionaires. So who cares? They're already untouchable. But now, if you break their monopolies up, they're powerless. It's the same thing happened to John Rockefeller with
Standard Oil back
Standard Oil. Teddy Roosevelt broke them apart and broke the railroads apart. Now their interest in D.C. was gone.
Yep. So, but every day we hear on the news that these big tech companies like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, trying to silence us on our First Amendment rights. I mean, I believe they're only a platform, and they should not be fact-checking anyone that writes on these platforms. They should not be allowed to decide what is right and what is wrong. We're adults. We are adults. We need to check for ourselves as to whether it's right or wrong. I mean, we don't need Big Brother looking over our shoulder, telling us they fact whatever it's called.
Check.
Yeah, that's it. And found out the information was wrong. So this is an area where I feel Republicans need to come out strong for the midterm elections. They need to stand united against this, against these big tech companies. And like you said, break up the monopoly. I mean, when companies like Amazon and Facebook get too big, like they are now, they feel they can do whatever they want. So they need to be like smacked down a couple steps.
And why don't they feel like they can do whatever they want? They are doing whatever they want. The government is giving them license to do whatever they want. The government is actually almost working for them to do whatever they want.
Yep.
You got to break it apart, blast it into 10 different pieces, let them own 10%, maybe 1% of each other part, and now they're out of Washington, D.C. They lost their power, they made their money, they'll still make money, and if you want to say stuff wrong on the internet and show that you're ignorant, that's your choice.
Back in February, we started this United States Constitutional Group, and I think it was like the first week in April, we started a Facebook page, and it's going well. We thank everyone for joining. Please tell other people about us so we can have a united voice in this fight. For 3 months now, and I don't post a lot. I need to get back into our education piece.
Me too. I've really slacked over the last week. It's almost been...
we thank Margaret for all her, she does a lot for us. But I've been in Facebook jail a few times, and I don't even know what I did wrong.
You're not allowed to know what you did.
I was banned from posting into groups. They say I violated community standards. But when I try to click on it and say what I violated, they don't tell you anything. We need to go, we need to do? Go back old school, like they did when you started your business. What'd you do? You had to go door to door, right?
Yeah.
If we get all the people stop posting on these social media, just deleted our accounts, Facebook would go bankrupt.
Well, the only reason why I have a Facebook is because of this group. You made me get Facebook.
Me too. But I'm saying if we all deleted everything, every person in America and across the world deleted Facebook, they
You
would
want the
change.
parlor?
They would change. They would change. You know, I mean, I doubt if we could do that. But hey, just imagine if we all did that, stood united, the change we could make, which would be amazing. But since we can't make that change, because we can't, we'll try our hardest. But we got to leave it up to our lackluster politicians to rein them in.
It's our First Amendment. That's dangerous.
You're right. It is dangerous.
I mean, and it's not only Facebook, it's YouTube too.
Oh yeah, I forgot to put YouTube in there.
Well, I tell you what,
You're right. It is dangerous, Mike.
just to do these podcasts, I spend hours and hours rewriting things on these liberal search engines so I can get the information on here. And like I said, when I did Nancy Pelosi, her history was blocked.
Right.
Couldn't even find what she did for a living before she got into politics.
But she probably didn't do anything.
Yeah, well, she raised 5 kids, and she's not proud of that.
I would be.
She had to hide it. She worked 7 days a week, holidays double. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world.
Raising being a mother.
Right.
You're right. It is.
Staying home and raising 5 kids and taking care of a house, holy mackerel. You get no days off. And holidays, you got to work double time with no pay.
Right.
So my number 4 was past education. I feel we should bring back pride to our youth. They should learn how great this country is. They should learn to be proud of themselves and their family heritage, no matter where they come from.
They need to be proud that they're Americans.
Right. Stand for the national anthem. Don't listen to Ayanna Presley. Don't protest the national anthem.
You need to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. That should be recited every day at school.
Yeah. There's schools that don't even say it anymore.
Yep.
The Republicans, this is one of the pages they have to take from
The Democrats.
the Democrats' book. They have to get into education. They have to pass 1776 when the United States was formed and do the right thing.
I agree with you there. Teaching these kids that they're racist or that they can't be anything that they want is wrong. Can't teach them critical race theory. Yeah, we need to teach about the history, good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Everyone, a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, they have no clue about racism.
They have to understand that this country was founded on principles that tried to better this. You know, our founding fathers knew the shortcomings of slavery, and they knew that this country eventually would rectify that problem, and they did.
Yep.
And you want to know something? Civil rights would have came a lot sooner if it wasn't for the Democratic Party. We went through that too.
Yeah, we did. We've come
Jim
along.
Crow laws would not have been in effect if the Democratic Party wasn't so hooked up on racism.
You're right. You got anything else for education?
No.
What was your number 5?
My number 5 was for these people running for office, these candidates, they have to call their opponents what they are,
Tyrants.
because they're not Democrats.
They're tyrants.
If the person you're running for has socialist views, you don't say my Democratic opponent. You say my socialist opponent. If your opponent has fascism and wants the government to have companies run things through the government, well, then they're not a Democrat. They're a fascist. That's Hitler. If they're communist and they want the government to run everything and own everything, then they're a communist, tyrant. Call them whatever you want. But every time and they should be getting on every mainstream outlet there is and flip the script, just like the Democrats do when they go on Fox and Newsmax and say, don't answer the question. You tell them, the person I'm running against, this is what they're doing. This is what the history of the Democratic Party is. Mm-hmm. Right up until today. The Democratic Party wants people to be judged by the color of their skin and not the content of their character. They need to go over this. all day, every time they're on the news, tell everybody, including the liberal press, including Facebook and YouTube and everything that all these podcasts, what their opponents are.
That is very good. I like that. So my fifth one, I'm actually going to steal from your sister, Margaret, because we did this little. I asked her on Facebook what her top 5 would be, and one of hers, and I'm in 100% agreement with, is to build up our military. You know, our United States military is the backbone of our country. It's thanks to them that we are free America and not under a communist flag or even socialism, I mean, which we think we're heading towards.
Yeah.
I mean, we have over 1 million military people in uniform and have the best Navy in the world. Not the biggest anymore. That goes to China. But we have the best. I mean, we face threats from multiple states around the world. Not only from China, but Russia, Iran, North Korea, and I'm sure there's several others.
Washington, D.C.
Yep. And we're going to ruin from the inside first, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these countries would like to see us fall apart from the inside so they would not have to try and take us over. But sooner or later, these countries are going to come together and attempt to conquer us. We stop these aggressors by having the best military in the world, which is very diverse. They can do a lot of things. So keeping our adversaries and friends knowing that we can handle a wide array of conflicts keeps them at bay. So we need a strong military.
Yeah. I mean, I can't go against that. That's 100% right. And I mentioned 5 things and Dennis mentioned 5 things. That's 10 points that I feel the new GOP should start deliberating on. I do believe this one time, the question I had asked you a few podcasts ago, that maybe soon after the midterm election, the Republican Party should surround themselves around one candidate for 2024. On top of that, too. Maybe my number 6.
Yeah, I got a couple more, but I thought those 5 I just mentioned were pretty important for me. I mean, the good thing about our military is we don't have a draft right now.
Yeah.
It's all volunteers.
Million.
Yeah. It's all volunteers. And I hope it never has to come to a draft. But if it does, we know we're in serious trouble.
Well, I don't know if it's true or not. I mean, it's just reports on TV. I unfortunately never did any time in the military. But if they are trying some form of critical race theory in the military, in a volunteer-based military, you're asking these guys to fight and die for a cause that's racist. I don't know how you go to sleep at night.
You're right. I mean, I was fortunate enough. I did 14 years between full-time and National Guard. So I got firsthand knowledge of what these soldiers do on a daily basis. I mean, I got to interview them. I got to write stories about what they're doing. I've seen their passion. I've seen the hard work they do to keep America safe. I wasn't a fan of the Iraq War or even the Afghan War. But you know what? You know what it did do? It kept the terrorists over there. It kept them fighting us on their soil so they wouldn't come here to hurt civilians that we care about so much.
I was there for that one.
Yep.
Twice.
They couldn't focus on attacking our homeland because we had them over there, focused on us over there. I mean, so the government was right in sending the people there, sending the troops there, because it kept the terrorists at bay. I mean, I feel pulling out of Afghanistan is a bad idea because the Taliban, they're going to seize power. And with that, the possibility of another 9/11 could be in the works.
Well, I feel the best way to make a terrific military, which we have right now, be even better is to take the politicians out of it. They should be able to just say one thing and one thing only. And they don't. We went over this already too. The only job they should have as far as the military has, they have 2 jobs they should do for the military. Number 1, fund them. Number 2, declare war. If you're going to send our troops into harm's way, the least you can do is declare war. Again, in one of our podcasts, the last time our leaders declared war was in 1947. And every action we've had after that has not been under a declaration of war because the leaders in Washington, D.C. are afraid to lose their job. So these people that represent us in the military and do the greatest job in our government does not get the backing of Washington, D.C. because they're afraid they may lose their job when you may lose your life.
Yeah, they don't care about you. You're just a number.
They should have nothing to do with the military. The President of the United States is the head of the military, and all he should do is ask for a declaration of war, and then him and the leaders of the military decide what needs to be done.
So there you have it. Jack had his 5. I had my 5. Mike, you got any final thoughts for us?
No, I think you covered it all, except for, I think they should, the Republicans should also mention what kind of a disaster would happen if they defunded the police. I think that should be a big topic too, and I think they could win, because I don't think the people of the United States want to defund the police.
Well, the Democrats want to defund the police because they want federal police.
Well, then you know what? The first ones that should go are the Capitol Police.
Right.
And then their bodyguards. And they already got the gun laws taken care of, so they'll be,
They'll
vulnerable.
they'll have to live under the rules they make,
Right.
which they don't do.
Right, so they, like I said, anything they decide, it should be done to them first.
That's why we talked about term limits in the past. If they actually made laws that they would have to fall under, they would think twice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
After 12 years of representing the country,
They have to face their laws.
now they have to come back home and live by the laws that they put in. And again, we want we want Congress, both houses, to write the bills and make the laws, not the bureaucracies and not the special interests. No more 3,000-page bills.
And we don't want a bill on your hair. We want something. We want something that's going to be good for all Americans. All right? Because a lot of us don't have hair.
Hey, I was going up to New York. I was planning a nice haircut with this nice little place that's down the block from my daughter. I got to rethink my whole haircut.
So what do you think about this week's podcast, Jack?
I liked it, and I hope somebody out there is listening, because I think they are. Because every now and then I'll watch the news or I'll watch something and I'll be like,
We talked about that.
I did that 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Come on, somebody recognize this.
I think someone's listening to our podcast and stealing from us.
Yeah. I think we have to start trademarking this.
Got any final thoughts?
No, I'm good. I just hope for my children and my grandchildren's sake that the leadership of this country becomes great again.
Mike, any final thoughts?
We just need our leaders to start leading.
All right. In order for Republicans to win and take over both houses, they need a new contract with the American people. They have to stick to it, like Newt Gingrich did in the 90s when Clinton was president.
Got him a second term.
Yep, they had no budget deficit when he left office. We're almost $30 trillion in debt. We're going to be over $30 trillion in debt. I don't think we'll ever have a balanced budget again. But Republicans must realize that we, the constituents, hold the power to get them elected. So stand together with us, find constitutionalists and honest people, and we will take back our government from these radical tyrants. That's all we have for this week. As always, knowledge is power, and we'll see you next time at the tavern.